This was the moment Mary Zielinski learned the truth about her son's death.
Wow.
With each turn of the page, the pain grows.
I feel like I sent him to the dogs, jeez.
And the guilt becomes overwhelming.
I sent him to this program to help him.
Her son, Nicholas Cutter, died of a cocaine and heroin overdose in a VA residential treatment program that was supposed to keep him clean.
Never did I think that this was going to happen. Never.
Last month, the Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs issued this scathing report against the VA's drug rehab program in Miami. Investigators discovered broken security cameras, staff members who failed to check on patients, and lax drug screening. Policies to prevent drugs from being smuggled into the rehab center were not being followed, and a third of the patients at the rehab center tested positive for illegal narcotics. The IG report garnered national attention. Florida's 2 senators reacted with outrage.
When a veteran who served our country puts themselves in a treatment center, they expect to have the same benefits they would have in a private facility.
It's inexcusable. Inexcusable.
The Inspector General investigation was prompted by Nick's death. However, his name never appeared in the report. He's referred to only as the unexpected patient death. CBS4 News learned his identity by digging through a variety of records. We then provided a copy of the IG report to Nick's mother and her boyfriend, Ajim Benushi. They've never told you what happened to him?
No.
They said they had been given the impression Nick might have choked to death on a sandwich. You didn't know that it was an overdose?
No, not until just now. Not until just right now.
They brought his belongings out to me in garbage bags.
In garbage bags?
In garbage bags.
It wasn't supposed to end like this. Nicholas Todd Cutter was eager to serve his country, enlisted in the Army when he was 20.
He went into the military to just better himself.
According to the IG report, after Nick came out of the Army in 2010, he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder.
I do know that he had a battle buddy die in his arms, and it affected him a great deal.
For a time, he worked with his mother at a James family-owned restaurant in Boynton Beach, but he had trouble interacting with folks.
He became paranoid, and he didn't want to be around people, and he was very angry.
They convinced him to get help at the VA Center in West Palm Beach.
This was his list of medications at one time.
They kept binders full of his medical records. Zolpidem, morphine, naproxen, trazodone. The pills weren't helping, and his nightmares grew. Afraid to sleep, he ended up using cocaine, staying up 2, 3, 4 nights in a row on a drug binge. His doctors in West Palm realized he had a new problem and suggested he come here to the drug treatment program at the Miami VA. It was supposed to be one of the best in the country, but he was reluctant to go and leave his mother behind.
I specifically told him, "Do you trust me, honey?" And he said, "Yes, Mom, I trust you." And I said, "This program will help you. This program is what you need, honey." And he trusted me. And I think that's what's the most painful thing for me, is because he would listen to anything that I would do. I pushed him to, because I thought it was something he truly needed, would help him. I didn't know that it was going to hurt him.
We are striving for excellence, and we deliver superior care.
Dr. Spencer Eth is in charge of all the mental health programs for the VA in Miami. He said the VA is working to fix the problems identified in the IG report, and that his sympathies go out to Nick's mother. She feels that you let her down.
A tragedy occurred, and I offer my, heartfelt condolences to this veteran's family.
But did you let her down?
We're not looking to blame, we're looking to provide care.
According to the IG report, in the hours before his death, Nick was so high on illegal drugs in the rehab center that he had to be helped into bed by other patients. The staff at the rehab center didn't even notice his altered state. In the morning, he was found dead in his room.
I trusted them. I trusted them to take care of him. It's like a part of me is broken, and you can't fix broken.
Mary Zielinski is consumed by guilt over her son's death. Nick Cutter, served in Iraq and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder when he came out of the Army in 2010.
Even as a mother, I couldn't help him.
In addition to the dozens of prescription drugs he was taking every day, Nick was using cocaine to stay awake at night to avoid nightmares. It was Mary who pushed Nick to participate in Miami's residential rehab program, located on the 5th floor of the VA hospital, and it was there 9 months later that he died.
What help did they give him?
We know we're not going to be successful all the time with every patient.
Dr. Spencer Eth is in charge of all mental health programs at the Miami VA.
When patients relapse, we don't blame the patient for their illness, and we don't blame ourselves when we try very hard and do all the right things.
But wait a second, doctor, but you didn't do all the right things in this case.
Oh, but we did.
Not according to this Inspector General's report, which investigated the rehab center following Nick's death. Investigators discovered broken security cameras, staff members who failed to check on patients, and lacked drug screening. Policies to prevent drugs from being smuggled into the rehab center were not being followed, and a third of the patients in the rehab center tested positive for illegal narcotics.
We do a very, very good job, but not a perfect job, of maintaining the integrity of our clinical environment. But from time to time, a veteran can sneak in an illicit substance and use it.
Well, it's more from time to time if a third of your patients were testing positive for illegal drugs.
At some point during a 3-month course of treatment, they may have relapsed, yes.
According to the IG report, Nick was so high on illegal drugs in the hours before his death that other patients had to help him to his bed. And yet the staff didn't notice anything wrong until they found him dead in the morning.
None of the other patients came to the staff and said, "Help this guy out. Our brother is using again."
But shouldn't staff have been able to pick up on that?
It is not possible to observe every patient all the time.
According to Eth, this was the first patient to die in the rehab center since it opened more than 10 years ago, and the staff was devastated by Nick's death.
It was a tragedy that deeply affected our staffs because we're committed to helping our patients.
It affected your staff, but it didn't change your staff in the sense of no one was fired, no one was disciplined, no one was held accountable.
Our staff, the Inspector General did not cite any of our staff as having done anything wrong.
Senator Marco Rubio recently introduced a bill in the United States Senate that would make it easier for the head of the VA to fire staffers.
The enormous and vast majority of the 300,000 men and women who work in this agency work hard and do a great job. But like any organization, there's going to be breakdowns, and when there are, people need to be held accountable.
CBS4 News caught up with Senator Rubio after a recent event in Doral and asked him about the issues in the VA's drug rehab program that allowed Nicholas Cutter to die.
I think it's part of a systemic problem within the VA system, which is why we're calling for, and that's why I filed a bill, to give the director the ability to fire people who are responsible for this sort of incompetence.
Rubio said he's glad the VA is moving to replace the cameras and improve staffing, but that may not be enough.
But now who's held responsible for it? And can someone lose their job as a result of this sort of mismanagement? And the answer right now is no. It's almost impossible to fire someone in the government and in the VA.
Why are you talking to me today?
Because people are dying.
Detective Thomas Fiore is the investigator for the VA's police department in South Florida.
There's so many things that are going on there that people need to know about.
Fiore, a federal law enforcement officer, came forward after our story last month about the death of Nicholas Cutter, a 27-year-old Iraq War veteran who overdosed on cocaine while inside the VA's drug rehab center in Miami. He said it was well known that Cutter was someone who frequently smuggled cocaine into the hospital. And yet he was still being given day passes to go out and get those drugs.
He would have been #1 on my list of people that I would want to stay at the facility, not just for his safety, but for the safety of all the other veterans that are in the medical center.
After Cutter was found dead, the staff bagged the body and cleaned up the room without contacting Fiore. Is that unusual? I mean, should they have?
Absolutely.
During a Senate hearing last week, VA Secretary General Eric Shinseki and Undersecretary Robert Petzel were asked about Cutter's death and whether anyone at the Miami VA has been held accountable.
Miami is still in process, but we will do this as quickly as we are able to do.
Fiore said Cutter's death also revealed a much bigger issue, the drug dealing that takes place just about every day on hospital grounds. And what kind of drugs are we talking about?
Oxycontin, Vicodin, Percocet, things along those lines. Marijuana, cocaine, heroin, I've come across them all.
He said most of the drug dealing takes place in front of the hospital's main entrance, as patients, staff, and outsiders mill about in the areas designated for smoking.
I had brought up a plan to bring in somebody from a different facility, basically go undercover into this program, or into this area at least.
So you come up with this plan to introduce an undercover, and what happens?
I'm still waiting, and it's been a couple of years now.
Fiore says he's also been prevented from investigating missing prescription drugs from the hospital's pharmacy.
I was instructed that I was to stop.
Who instructed you to do that?
The chief of staff.
The problems weren't just limited to drugs. Fiore said VA administrators didn't want him investigating any crimes that might reflect poorly on those in charge.
I know that I've seen patient abuse in the nursing home.
When you say you've seen it, give me an idea of what you've seen.
Well, I've seen patients with just full black and blues.
Somebody hit them.
It's my belief, yes.
Rather than reporting those incidents as criminal matters, hospital executives handle them administratively.
To make the problem go away, they just take that individual staff member, and they pick them up, and they relocate them to a whole different area.
Another area that goes unchecked is theft.
Theft is rampant.
Fiore says millions of dollars of equipment goes missing or is stolen every year at the Miami VA.
And we're talking government property. We're talking about things that the taxpayers are buying.
Fiore, a vet himself who served 4 years in the Marine Corps, knows he's taking a risk by speaking out.
Am I scared? Absolutely.
What are you scared of?
Retaliation. I can't begin to explain to you how retaliation works within just the Miami VA. They don't like people that want to air their dirty laundry.
This investigator came forward. He pointed out to the fact that these drugs were being diverted, and what he was told to do was to stop reporting it and stop investigating it.
Senator Marco Rubio reacting to whistleblower Thomas Fiore, a longtime detective and investigator at the Miami VA, who came forward to CBS4 News this week alleging that he was discouraged from investigating illegal drug sales and drug thefts at the hospital.
The reaction wasn't, let's act on it, let's come up with a plan to address it. The reaction from the medical director there was, stop talking about it and you no longer have authority to look at it.
VA officials deny they have impeded Fiore and have tried to portray him as a troubled employee. But Rubio said the allegations made by Fiore were indicative of problems across the VA.
I wish I could say it was an isolated instance. One is too many, but it's not. We are seeing this all over the country. Every time they are confronted by a problem, their reaction has been to try to cover it up, to doctor information. What it indicates to you is that there's this entrenched bureaucracy who's more interested in protecting their jobs than they are in solving this problem or helping these veterans.
Rubio spoke to CBS4 News moments before going to the Senate floor to advocate for his bill giving the VA Secretary, Eric Shinseki, the ability to fire incompetent employees.
They ultimately might be fired years from now. In the meantime, there's no level of accountability. And people know how hard it is to be fired. And so they know that it can't be held accountable. And that's why you're likelier to see someone getting a raise or a bonus than you are to see them reprimanded or disciplined.
A similar bill passed the House on Wednesday with bipartisan support, but Rubio couldn't get a vote in the Senate Thursday. Following CBS4's stories on the death of Nicholas Cutter, the 27-year-old Iraq veteran who overdosed on cocaine at the Miami Rehab Center, Rubio wrote to General Shinseki asking if anyone had been held accountable. Have you gotten a response yet to your letter?
As of today, we have not, and that may have changed in the last few hours, but as of today, my understanding, we have not gotten a response. And we want a response, but the response we really want is we want action. We want them to begin to take concrete steps towards solving this, and I believe that includes people need to be fired. If this were happening in any other entity, in your newsroom, in my office, anywhere else, people would be held accountable for it. Their jobs would be lost.
You've been under a lot of scrutiny lately.
Yes.
What do you have to say about that?
I think I will withstand all the scrutiny.
Because there's a number of people who think that you should resign and step down.
And?
Dr. Vincent DeGennaro, the embattled chief of staff of the Miami VA, appearing confident despite calls for him to resign. Members of Congress have questioned whether DeGennaro should remain chief of staff after reports surfaced that after one of his patients died, it resulted in him being sanctioned by the state of Florida and with him agreeing to never practice medicine again in the state of New York.
It's good for you to have all the facts. I don't think you have them all.
Well, we've tried to interview you a number of occasions and
No,
you've
that's not
refused. No, it is true. On Friday, even Senator Marco Rubio suggested he should consider resigning rather than bringing further embarrassment to the Miami VA. So you have no intention of resigning?
Absolutely none.
We had caught DeGennaro and the Miami VA's director, Paul Russo, as they were heading to a series of meetings with members of the local congressional delegation.
Miami VA is working hard to improve access to veterans. In some areas, we do have some access issues. Our numbers are getting better and they're coming down.
How did we get to this point? Is it just not enough resources, not enough doctors? Did we play fast and loose with the veterans?
No, we didn't play fast and loose with the veterans. Demand changes, and we've had some years where demand has been flat. Last year, demand was down by 1,600 enrollees. This year, we're showing a 1,300 enrollee increase.
Russo's comments were the first public comments he's made since the scandal surrounding the VA broke several months ago. It is also the first time he's spoken since our story earlier this year about Nicholas Cutter, a 27-year-old Iraq War veteran who overdosed inside the Miami VA's drug rehab program. His mother was never told how he died until we showed her. You sent a personal letter to Nicholas Cutter's mother. Why did you feel the need to do that?
Well, because I do feel that we lost track of following up with his mother. We should have done that better. And I sent a personal apology letter to her regarding that. And I believe that was the right thing to do.
I'm Jim DeFeeti, CBS4 News.